Now, the Stop Deep Sea Oil Flotilla has sailed from Auckland to the East Cape. Te Whānau Apanui, Greenpeace and other seasoned protest vessels had a magnificent send-off as they set out to show their opposition to foreign petrol company Petrobras drilling oil in the Marae Basin.
Today we have ships sitting in this harbour, we have boats, we have sailing vessels. Te Whānau Apanui called on all peoples of New Zealand to stand beside them in defence of their ancestral lands and waters. We all know the consequences of deep sea oil drilling when it goes wrong. We saw it in the Gulf of Mexico last year. To try and clean up that spill, the American government took 6,000 vessels and they could not clean up that spill. Imagine if that drill was happening in the Marae Basin off the East Cape of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Where are you going to get 6,000 vessels? You
have the promise of Māori that we will protect our rights. And secondly, we have the history and the whakapapa, the genealogy to support that. These foreigners who think they can come here and take these things from out of our resources think that we're just a small people. Wrong. 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 And we will prove it.
We owe an apology to Petrobras, the Brazilian company who is coming here. Because when our government told you you were welcome here, they were not speaking for us. And as long as you stay here, we will resist you and we will thwart you.
Nō reire Tiwi, let's join Jody now for our studio interview. Jody.
Kia ora, Scotty. The government says 59 petrol wells have been drilled in New Zealand waters in the last 5 years, and there could be more with untold benefits for Māori. Brazil petrol giant Petrobras was awarded a 5-year permit to look for oil on the East Cape, where thousands of Māori have gathered this weekend to protest, calling it unsafe and dangerous. Joining me today are two politicians opposed, Green MP David Clendon and Labour's Kelvin Davis. Kia ora, welcome to the programme.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Jodie.
David, let's start with you. You say this is environmentally reckless. Can you explain what you mean by that?
It's extremely high risk to be drilling in deep exposed ocean. We've known those resources have been there for a very long time. The only reason they're trying to exploit them now is because oil is getting more expensive and harder to find, and we are carrying the risk of an accident. Almost inevitably there will be an accident, and there will be nobody to come to the rescue if anything goes wrong in those exposed seas.
Kelvin, you're from Labour. What's your position on this?
Well, it's a matter of balancing the needs of the environment with the needs of the economy. Unfortunately, with oil exploration, it only takes one corroded pipe or one incident, one explosion for there to be a huge environmental catastrophe, the likes of which we've seen recently in the Gulf of Mexico. So, you know, it's about striking the balance, although with oil exploration, there's always that risk that something can go wrong, and it's just totally irreversible.
We hear about the risks all the time, but has Labour actually done any in-depth research to sort of quantify exactly what those risks are?
Well, you just need to look at Petrobras's record. Since 1984, they've had 17 incidents where there's been explosions, there's been fatalities. It only takes one incident for there to be a huge environmental catastrophe. And I don't think Petrobras actually had to show that they had responsible sort of ways of fixing any mistakes. All they had to do was show that they could find and locate oil. That was the only condition. So that's a real concern.
David, have the Greens actually had any contact with Petrobras around this?
Not directly, but I think Petrobras understands that there is opposition here from Greens, from environmentalists, and particularly from iwi. There is no risk management about this. To drill, for the example, the Canadian government to give oil permits to drill offshore, they will insist that they have what they call a relief well capacity, which means there must be another drilling rig within a few days of the site where they are drilling in case of a Gulf of type scenario. It would take a minimum of 3 months to get a rig to New Zealand if there was an accident, and in that time the entire coastline could be an absolute write-off, and with it the kaimoana, the cultural practice of 800 or 1,000 years.
You mentioned before in the Green Room that Greens and Labour have slightly opposing opinions. What can you tell me about the differences there?
I'll let Calvin speak to his view, but certainly for us, we think that the risk is simply too high for too little return. Peak oil is upon us. We know that oil is going to become increasingly scarce, increasingly expensive. The chief economist of the International Energy Agency said a week or two ago that we should leave oil before it leaves us. We need to manage a transition to a low-carbon economy. We should be investing heavily in the research and the implementation of alternatives to oil. Make our economy and our environment much better protected, much more future-proofed. And drilling for oil is not the way to achieve any of that.
Kelvin, what does Labour make of the fact that the government's new messenger to sell this deal is Heke Parata, who's from Ngāti Porou, from the East Coast?
Well, that's one of my major concerns, is where is the voice of Ngāti Porou in all this? Why is it that they haven't been listened to, their needs haven't been listened to? And I have fears for the Northland Basin too, off the west coast of Northland, that the needs and the wishes of the whānau and hapu of Ngāti Whātua, Ngāpuhi, Te Roroa, Te Rarawa, Te Aupori, Ngāti Kuri, are they going to be listened to? And it looks like that the national government is sending in the Māori face to pacify the natives.
And that's something we've seen before, obviously, Crown agents, new agents. What are your fears that there could be more petrol drills happening off Te Onero Atohi?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's about those real fears that if there was just that one incident, does that mean that the Te Onero Atohi is going to be covered in oil? I'm never going to be able to go and get my bucket of pippies again. I'm not going to be able to put my long line out to catch a kahawai and snapper. You know, Bailey's Beach is another long beach that the whole Kaipara Harbour is in jeopardy if there's just one incident off the west coast of Northland, and it would be the same for Te Raukumara Basin as well.
Some of the figures that have been coming out, Taranaki's oil and gas industry employs 5,090 full-time people, contributed $2 billion to GDP, average salary $70,000 per annum. So surely that's got to be good news for Māori in that area.
It's a declining industry, though. Yes, we do need to maintain employment levels. We need to find new industries, new ways of boosting our economy and employing our people. But oil drilling is not the way forward. The risk is simply too high. There is no way of mitigating against that risk of the offshore drilling. We need to be looking at clean tech, at green tech. These are the ways, these are the investments for the future. There's massive investment in North America, in Europe, even in China, in alternative energy sources. And we are busily trying to go down the road of the 20th century, not the 21st.
Kelvin, what do you make of the fact that Greenpeace have hooked up with Te Whānau Apanui? Greenpeace have a history of fairly aggressive protest action. Do you think we are likely to see more, something more aggressive with their linking with Te Whānau Apanui?
I'm not sure about that, but the good thing about Greenpeace linking with Te Whānau Apanui is that Te Whānau Apanui will have a platform, will have a voice with Greenpeace, and it's really important that the Māori voice is heard and that they're not just pushed to the side and ignored. You know, there's real concerns and genuine concerns about the risk to the environment, the risk to Tangaroa, to Papatuanuku, the risk to our food baskets. And it's really important, I think, that whānau and hapu and iwi have these platforms to have their messages heard and take it to the government.
With at the last election, it was all about foreshore and seabed. Do you see this taking over election coverage?
This is almost an extension of foreshore and seabed.
Sure.
The foreshore and seabed was never about the beach or the wet patch that the tide comes and goes from. It's very much about the resource, the mineral resource under the seabed. Māori have known this, of course, as have others. And now Māori don't even get consulted. The example of Ngāti Porou, who discovered after the event that this permit had been issued, and they got an apology from the minister afterwards, a very reluctant apology, I might say. So most certainly this is an issue that is not going to go away. Tairāwhiti, Tokerau, and all around the coast. I think it's very positive, in fact, that Greenpeace, Te Whānau Apanui and the other hapu and iwi have joined forces on this, because historically there has sometimes been tension between iwi and conservation groups, and it's very good, it's a real breakthrough to see them working side by side in a common cause.
And I think it makes a mockery of the Takutai Moana bill, and that, okay, the oil is under the seabed, but they have to drill through the seabed to get to it. In other words, and the government has said with the Takutai Moana bill, no one owns the seabed, not the government, not iwi, and yet they're still allowing themselves, or allowing this company to drill through the seabed. It makes a mockery of the Takutai Moana bill.
Okay, kia ora. Thank you very much for your contribution to the program today, gentlemen. Kia ora. Back to you, Scotty.
Kia ora rawa, tu koutou katoa, rawa a koutou kōrero I tēnei ata.